Welcome, everyone, and I'm very glad that you could join us today. My name is Megan Adams, and I'm the Central Regional Coordinator of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator for today's webinar, AI in Libraries, Transforming Information Access. If you have questions during the webinar, we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. At the end of the presentation, you may enter your questions into the chat. Today's presenter is Treg Hopkins, the co-founder of Connectable, which is an Indiana-based nonprofit committed to enhancing adult education programs across more than 20 states through advanced data systems and artificial intelligence. After this webinar has been transcribed, it will be available on the Indiana State Library's archived webinars page. If you are watching an archived recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to the Indiana State Library's e-newsletter. The Wednesday Word, and check our continuing education website for other professional development opportunities. Apparently, I'm having trouble with words, so let's get started. Thank you so much for being with us today, Treg. I'll hand the presentation over to you.
Thanks so much, Megan, and thanks everyone for joining us today on What's Up Wednesday. I'm excited to talk to you about artificial intelligence. And this is the first of a four-part series that's focused on how to integrate artificial intelligence into your library. So it's really the foundation today. And the integration of artificial intelligence into the library settings, it represents really what I consider to be a natural progression in a centuries-long evolution of information management that libraries have consistently taken a part in. That embracing of new technology and these advancements from card catalogs to online databases to really fulfill your mission of democratizing knowledge access across all of Indiana and all of the world. The introduction of artificial intelligence marks a significant leap for all of us, a leap forward, I hope, in the continual adaptation of our local libraries. So as we get started today, we're going to talk about the foundations of libraries in terms of artificial intelligence, how we're going to be able to use applications themselves to transform what we do. And of course, it's not all beautiful. We're going to talk about some ethical considerations that you might have as well, or that maybe you should consider as you implement. And then we'll talk about what is the best process for implementation and give you some tips and some strategies in order to do this in the real world setting. So early computational systems is where we're going to begin. And libraries were often the place that people went for these primarily repetitive tasks. In fact, in the 1960s and 70s, we saw the emergence of machine-readable cataloging standards. And maybe you're familiar with Marx, or maybe it's way before your time. In the 1980s and 90s, we started to see something that I think we can all relate to when we started to put the card catalogs and public access catalogs with integrated library systems and being able to search and to use these items for retrieval tools. And it really transformed how we could find information, where it was located, and to be able to guide us in a way that made it a little more friendly than pulling out the old card catalog itself and then trying to traverse through the library to find it. So we know that, these sort of early adopters of technology actually came from the library, and we're excited about that. The AI revolution in libraries began in the early 2010s. So it started kind of early for libraries as well, actually ahead of many businesses. And it coincided with what we consider to be breakthroughs in the technology itself in terms of machine learning, natural language processing, and even computer vision. These technologies enable these systems to recognize patterns and to be able to learn from the interactions that you were having with your patrons, to be able to generate those insights then that were beyond explicit programming. modern library artificial intelligence applications are actually leveraging that technology, like sophisticated algorithms, and they can understand context for the first time to be able to interpret ambiguous queries and analyze vast data sets. They can also even predict what are the user needs, and that can help improve the collection that you have. So today's AI systems and libraries, they can represent that quantum leap from the earlier technologies. And rather than simply executing those predefined instructions, these systems can adapt and they can learn and improve with performance and over time. So the more you use them, the better they get. This fundamental shift then from programmatic to learning-based approaches has opened new frontiers in how libraries are organizing, presenting, and disseminating that information to their communities. The transformation of library services through artificial intelligence relies not just on you, but on several foundational technologies. Understanding these underlying systems actually helps information professionals evaluate the potential that you could actually use these applications and implement them in what it is that you're doing on that day-to-day basis. Artificial intelligence has a few different modes, really. The first is called machine learning, and it's where we're taking these things like expert systems where you've got information and you want to place it into the machine, and then the machine can kind of mimic what your brain is doing. Those systems improve the experience of our users. And also, again, it's about accumulating the information. So accumulating that data and then exposing users to it through the system itself. Natural language processing is something that most of you are familiar with. You probably have in your home or on your cell phone a device that you can speak to. I can ask Alexa to turn on and off different devices, to change the temperature in my home. I can ask Google or Siri to do things for me, like setting a reminder or an alarm. And those are all very helpful things. That technology that it's actually utilizing is called natural language processing, and it's allowing these computers to understand our own voices. And one of my favorite things about it, because I work a lot with ESOL students and the English language learner community, is that it also knows no language barrier. So it improves accessibility with that natural language processing as well. And then computer vision, the ability to recognize and interpret visual information. It's transforming things as simple as taking a hike out at Turkey Run, taking a picture of a plant and being able to identify it, but it can also do incredible things when we're talking about tutoring and helping people with their homework. So as students come in and they have very complex math, I know for me, math was linear when I was in school, but today it's four-dimensional, and helping younger students with math is always really complicated, even though I'm good at math, because it's so different than it was. But simply taking a picture of the problem and allowing artificial intelligence to see it, to understand it, and then to further explain, to break it down step by step, and to be able to identify where the student is getting hung up, where are those gaps, and then providing resources to educate them through that process. We used to think of calculators as maybe cheating. And I think that's the risk of artificial intelligence with computer vision today, but we actually want to use it as a tool to help us understand. So the most advanced version of artificial intelligence today is also using something called knowledge graphs, where we're finally interconnecting all of the technologies together. So looking at information across different areas, different disciplines, different components, and merging them together. These core technologies, they rarely operate in isolation. Most successful library AI implementation then combines these multiple approaches, using computer vision to digitize historical photographs, for example, or natural language processing to be able to extract descriptive text, machine learning to be able to identify related material or other things you might be interested in. If you've ever streamed a video like on Netflix or Hulu, it's probably come up at the end of your program suggesting that you might also like these things. Well, we can enhance that and utilize that in the library setting as well. From research articles to just books for fun, we can start to integrate that into what we do every day. That integration creates these comprehensive systems then that can analyze, organize, and present information in ways that they were really previously impossible without being able to sit there and read every book itself and then tell you my opinion with bias of if it's interesting or not. These traditional computing approaches actually they can take it beyond that. We can sort through things and even remove bias. Now, you're probably familiar with artificial intelligence, or you wouldn't have come to this topic. I think the question, though, is are libraries where we are in the real world and in business with application of artificial intelligence? So I looked at some research to find out, well, what is the research saying? Because what I say doesn't matter as much as what others have found through scientific methodology. So current adoption and what is it looking like right now? Well, in academic libraries, 67% are saying that they are using or planning to use AI in some form in the next 3 years. 42% of public libraries currently employ AI for at least one core service function. But 89% of librarians recognize that it's going to transform the library in the next decade. I want to take a minute to talk about how that applies, though, to our businesses. I think that libraries are great resources in our community. So I have a little bit of concern then that 42% of libraries are using AI, because in the world of business, 78% are using it daily. 89% of small businesses and often small business owners turn to libraries for resources. So our communities around us, the people in general, everyday business, are using it already at a higher rate. In fact, the small business rate is matching the rate that librarians believe that it will transform in the next decade. So I suggest that we've got to catch up. We're a little bit behind, and that's unusual for libraries because usually we're ahead of the game. So I hope that this kind of inspires you to attend the next few sessions, because I know that it can transform what you do and it can become more relevant in your communities that you're serving. One of the ways is by automating the cataloging and actually creating metadata. Cataloging and metadata creation have traditionally been very labor intensive. When I say that AI can save you time, I promise that it can save you time. It is an intensive process. It requires significant professional expertise, that expertise that you have. And when we give you new tools, you're going to get even better at it. AI technologies now are transforming these fundamental library operations, enabling more efficient processing while also potentially expanding the depth and the quality of the resource that you have, being able to describe it. For multimedia collections, computer vision technologies actually enable these automated extraction of descriptive metadata from images, from video, and even audio recordings. The systems can identify, for example, people and places, objects and activities. It's pretty impressive to see these activities depicted in visual materials that were previously unsearchable without actually reviewing the content and somebody transcribing it. Today, the metadata is available and it can actually use the technology to see it without reviewing it, and then you can review the accuracy of that. The New York Public Library has successfully employed these technologies already and be able to enhance really the access to their historical photograph collection. I was able to find my family, my grandparents came from New York, and I was able to find depictions of them, my grandmother in 8th grade at Danny Kaye School in Brooklyn. It was crazy to be able to search the database, to type in her name, and to be able to see this information come up directly to me. Information, photos that I would have never had before, I now have at my fingertips. So being able to access those historical photograph collections, it was something meaningful to me. It was automatically generating those descriptive tags, the people that were in them, and it complemented the traditional cataloging. So particularly it's promising, and it's this AI technology, their ability to process the materials and to do so across languages. I had mentioned how important it was for me, for people that are speaking other languages, to be able to access this. Many of the historical photographs, the language is hard to recognize, sometimes in English, but also in many different languages. So neural machine learning is integrating this metadata through generation systems, and it can create these multilingual access points for diverse collections. And even in our small towns and local communities, we've got diverse collections, and a lot of the information might be missing. So this big bulk of information that can be processed and connected through time, that's really transforming what we even know about our own communities. This capability then is especially valuable for institutions that are serving multicultural communities or managing even international collections. Perhaps the most transformative impact of AI in libraries is the revolution of how users are discovering and accessing information themselves. Traditional keyword searches, like you might remember the early days of the internet, where you would get a lot of results that really weren't relevant and you had to sort through them. You'd type in a keyword and sometimes it would come up no results because it had to be in a particular order. And of course, we saw that in our card catalog systems as well, and the other systems we were using to process information, that things like book titles or authors had to be spelled correctly or in the correct format. Those systems relied on that exact keyword matching, placing the burden on users to be able to formulate these precise queries. But modern AI-driven discovery platforms, they're fundamentally reimagining this interaction. They're creating more intuitive and effective pathways to information. Semantic search, for example, represents the cornerstone of that next generation of what it looks like to provide not just a query, but also within context, with meaning. So it's understanding the meaning, it's understanding the context. It's allowing users to be able to search through natural language in all the ways that we mess up language. It understands it, can redefine it, can recognize and reorder it in ways that these systems then employ word embeddings and neural networkings, very similar to how our mind can do autocorrect, to be able to comprehend these conceptual relationships between these terms. It's going to return results then that are based on relevance to the underlying information and be able to look at the need rather than a mere keyword presence. So for example, a query that looked at something like climate change impact on agriculture, which is a query I ran for our local ag office about a week ago. Well, what is the return on that? Well, it might actually return highly relevant resources that really were never explicitly using those exact terms, but it discussed the related concepts. So it might not know what's happening here in Putnam County's ag system, but it was relating it to global warming effects on crop yields. And it was looking at all of this other information. So pretty impressive to be able to go out and give basic concept and for it to come back with deep research, ideations of this is what's actually happening, and then to be able to prove it through those research articles, connecting the dots where we didn't even know dots existed. Personalization represents one of the most promising applications of artificial intelligence itself in these library services. By being able to analyze patterns in user behavior, content characteristics, and even that contextual information, AI-powered recommendation systems can suggest relevant resources that are tailored then to the individual interest, to their research needs, and to learning styles even. Whether you're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, we can start connecting those dots and it gets to know you as a person. So it knows if you're a visual learner, I'm going to look for images and photographs or highly graphic information that's in a text. Sometimes it can even use things like accessibility for neurodiversity to be able to recognize fonts that are better for those with ADHD or dyslexia, transforming those barriers that we once had into actual superhighways, being able to say, hey, here's an exit point. We can get you to where you're going much faster by using this technology. These systems are transforming the traditional library experience, and it's primarily from self-directed exploration. So it's turning it back over to your patron to be able to access this curated journey of discovery, not just on their own, but with the use of artificial and intelligent technology. AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants, I use them every day. I don't know if I've answered my phone in the past 18 months because I have an AI assistant. Her name is Lucy. What I like about Lucy is that I've had 90-year-olds compliment the voicemail service. I had one, and she was actually a former professor at Harvard, and she called me one day. Lucy answered. She talked to her for a while. It gave all the information. Lucy let me know that she was calling. And when I called her back, she said, hey, I wanted to tell you, I know Lucy wasn't real, but it gave me somebody to talk to. And I had a full conversation, and she knew what I was saying. And then I told her something really cool because she's from Hungary originally. I said, she can also speak Hungarian. So the next time that my friend called, she started speaking in Hungarian, and I received all of the information back in English because I don't speak Hungarian. This natural language questions, providing these intuitive access, not only to voicemails for me, but to collections like you already have. These systems can interpret complex queries, follow conversational threads, and adapt to user feedback. Libraries at institutions like Carnegie Mellon, they've implemented these interfaces, and they're able to help these users really navigate these complex research questions, locating appropriate resources, and doing so in record time. So it's important for us that these AI systems not only help us with the day-to-day, but that they can analyze complex patterns in collection usage, user demographics, academic curricula, and even these publishing trends to identify what are the high priority acquisition areas that your library needs. Unlike traditional collection development, that often relies heavily on librarian expertise and faculty requests, these systems can uncover unexpected patterns and emerging research areas that might otherwise be overlooked. I know for myself, as I review like doctoral dissertations, it helps me identify if students are plagiarizing, if students aren't using the most up-to-date resources. Sometimes, I'll find a resource that was from 22, and I'll think, well, haven't they published more on that today? So I use something like ReciteWorks that helps me identify what other sources are advancing the resource that was previously given, and then encouraging that student to dive deeper into the research to continue to find the most relevant and most up-to-date information without overlooking it. So as libraries themselves are adopting artificial intelligence technology, you've got to be able to navigate those ethical challenges like plagiarism, like falsification of resources as well. With these ethical challenges, we've got to be careful, and we have to be able to align with our core values, that intellectual freedom, as well as the privacy, the equity, and that commitment to truth. And I think that as questionable truth exists in our media today, artificial intelligence is propagating some of that, but it can also be the detector. It can help us remove bias. It can help us recognize truth. And this ethical implementation, rather, of artificial intelligence in our libraries requires thoughtful consideration, something that requires your input, your skill set, your ability, and it requires several key dimensions as well. Transparency and explainability in order to present particular challenges is unique, and it's important. Many advanced artificial intelligence systems, especially these deep learning models with deep research, they actually function kind of like a black box on an airplane. It's explaining what happens with what we can't see or what we can't understand, where the reasoning behind specific outputs isn't easily explained. It actually sometimes conflicts with libraries' commitment to information literacy and critical evaluation. So we've got to be careful. But leading institutions are addressing this challenge by prioritizing explainable AI approaches and providing users with the information that they need about how recommendations are generated, what factors influence them, for example, search results, and what limitations exist in those automated systems. Accessibility has to remain central to the implementation process itself, and especially the decisions that you're making at the local level. While artificial intelligence is able to enhance access for a lot of users, there's lots of features that are great, like automatic transcription or even translation, but it can also create new barriers if not thoughtfully designed. Libraries have to ensure that artificial intelligence and enhanced services are working effectively with assistive technologies, offering multiple interaction modes like text, voice, and visual, but also by providing these alternatives for users who cannot or just choose not to engage with AI systems. And that's okay as well. We have to remind ourselves that not everyone is going to adopt to new technology or adapt to it rather very well. The implementation of artificial intelligence has to be tailored then to specific missions, to resources, as well as the users in your communities or in different institutional types. The fundamental technologies, they might be similar, but the appropriate application of them, the scale or the implementation approach, well, that could vary significantly across academic or public, special or school libraries, or even your collections. Regardless of your library type, though, successful AI implementation generally follows that phased approach where you're going to choose a point and how are we going to phase this process in? It takes a strategy. Most institutions begin with pilot projects, focused on well-defined uses and cases with very clear success metrics so that you can start to report that back on what was successful, what worked, and what didn't. The initial implementations provide a valuable learning experience then, being able to demonstrate that potential benefit and build the organizational capacity before expanding it to other more complex applications. So I don't encourage you to just dive in head first, but more to take one step at a time to let your body kind of adjust to that water before taking the next step down. Now, once you get so far in, it always helps to just kind of immerse yourself in the pool, right? To come back up, to let your body get used to it. Because we also know that if we only get halfway there and you get it right up to your waistline, it's so cold that you don't feel inclined to get further in, and your body continues to kind of feel that temperature sensation. So while we want to tiptoe as we enter the pool, and we want to do so safely using the handrail, at some point it's going to be best just to go ahead and dunk yourself into artificial intelligence as well. Now, transparency and explainability presents these particular challenges that we have to be aware of. Many advanced AI systems are looking at these models, right? And they're understanding that black box approach. Well, we've got to be able to recognize that accessibility has to remain central to our implementation decisions. And AI can enhance the access to a lot of different users. Automatic transcription and translation we've talked about. We've actually seen that there are programs that are putting this directly into place. Libraries themselves rather have always been not just adopters of technology, but ethical guides for the implementation. So as we integrate AI into our services, we have both that opportunity and the responsibility to be able to demonstrate how these powerful tools can be used in ways to upload human dignity, to intellectual freedom, and even the equitable access to knowledge. We look at leading institutions and how are they addressing then these challenges through the development of AI. Well, we can create actual ethical frameworks specifically for library context. The American Library Association has an AI advisory committee, and the International Federation of Library Association has a working group. Those groups are actually working together, and they've published guidelines that can help people just like yourself to evaluate the technologies, to be able to engage with vendors and develop policies that ensure AI implementation aligns with the professional values and the institutional mission that you have. I encourage you to take a look at them and to consider for yourself with your board and your colleagues what framework is needed for ethical consideration, what AI policy will exist right here, right now. It seems like maybe you're not able to see the presentation. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the presentation seems to have gone away for some reason.
Let's try to share it again.
It's
Other people,
wonderful to see your face, but
well, I'm happy about that too. Oh, others might be a
oh,
setting,
you
maybe.
can see it. Okay, might be on my end then.
I can see it on my end.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so we were talking just about how it's important for you to create your own guidelines, to be able to engage with vendors, to be able to develop these policies then that align with your own professional values, as well as the mission of your specific library and in your community. The implementation of artificial intelligence in libraries has to be tailored very specifically to the mission, the resources, and even to your community. The different institutional types, these fundamental technologies, they might be similar. They might have appropriate applications that you can then scale and implement and that you can learn from each other. So continue to talk to other libraries in your area to figure out what is it that we're doing? How are we doing it? And make sure that you're kind of like expressing this beyond just the type of library that you're in, whether it's academic, public, or a school library, a special interest library, an archive collection. There's all different ways that you can incorporate this into what you do and how you do it. Public libraries are serving such a diverse community with broad informational needs that their AI implementation process might look a little bit different. Typically, multi-language services and translation capabilities, having user-friendly interfaces that are accessible of varied technological skill levels, because we know that not everybody even understands or has the digital literacy that somebody else might. In fact, our youth might be more adept than our elderly, yet those populations are both using that public library. So creating some policies, some guidelines, as well as some encouraging points to be able to improve our digital citizenship and AI literacy education can also be implemented at your local library. I was telling Megan ahead of this that for the past few months, I've been traveling throughout Florida because as a state, their legislation wanted a requirement that all faculty members in their public schools, as well as their public libraries, were actually having tools to be able to teach in the community. So I was going from school to school and library to library, holding sessions where we were using practical experience, actually teaching people how to use the tools like ChatGPT or an AI component of their choosing. So like Microsoft Copilot. So being able to put this in the community, to be able to open it up to people that want to learn more, I'd be happy to help you as well. But it's something that's really important that you start to engage your community, to bring them into your doors and to be able to show them that your local library continues to be at the forefront of advanced technology, that you're still the community resource for all things information as well as entertainment. The future of libraries, they're not going to be defined by whether they adopt artificial intelligence, but by how they integrate these technologies while preserving and strengthening their core values as well as those community relationships. So by approaching AI as a tool of extending human capabilities rather than replacing human judgment, libraries themselves can navigate this transformation while remaining true to their enduring mission of connecting people with knowledge and supporting their intellectual life of their communities themselves. Perhaps most importantly, libraries have to position themselves not just as consumers of AI technology, but as actively participating in shaping the development and the application in information context. So by articulating these clear values, demonstrating ethical implementations, and advocating for systems that serve the public interest, libraries themselves then can start to influence that broader evolution of these technologies. This leadership role is very consistent with the historical function as institutions that can not only adapt to technological change, but can also guide it towards social benefit. So I'm happy to open myself up to questions. I told Megan I would try to leave room for examples, questions, thoughts that you might have. And she told me that from her experience in the past, that you would need that time. So this is our first session. It's all about the foundation. And I would love for you to hit me hard or to ask the tough questions. And I'll be happy to engage them now.
I do have a question that I saw come up in the chat from Carol Reeves. She asked, does the term metadata mean that AI is involved? For example, her library pays for cataloging through OCLC, and it's referenced as metadata.
Yeah, so metadata really has nothing to do with AI itself, but AI uses metadata. So I'm going to just, instead of metadata, I'm just going to say lots of information across different places. And that what we're trying to do with it is bring it into one place. And what AI is doing is saying, we've got a lot of information in several different places, and we want a way to be able to see it not siloed, not separately, but really more interdependently. So it's taking just a whole lot of information and it's putting it into basically a database management system that's easy to be able to sort through it. And I assume that with OCLC, then what they're doing is acting as a database management system. But the metadata is simply all of the spreadsheet stuff that it's searching through. And of course, it can do that through several different spreadsheets.
Nice, thank you.
Makes a little if I speak in a way that doesn't make sense, continue to ask questions to help it make sense.
Thank you, Treg. Sarah Souther asked, could you please address environmental considerations?
Absolutely. I'm going to start with the direction that you probably didn't necessarily mean with that statement. It is able and capable of revolutionizing and improving our environment significantly. So it is transforming the way. I was in a meeting over in Danville, Illinois yesterday talking about how it was transforming a city that had no recycling program. And they were able to identify why and then what to do about it. Finding that providing public access to recyclable bins throughout the city it was actually understated. People didn't realize that it wasn't just about having curbside pickup in the home, that having mixed recycling was also not as important, that when people had a goal of recycling cans, that we saw more cans recycled than in mixed recycling. How did we learn this information? It wasn't just through surveying the population there, but it was looking at over 1,200 communities throughout the world. And many of those communities were ones that are implementing environmentally significant recycling programs very intentionally, which is what Danville or Vermilion County's goal is. So it can improve things by understanding it in ways that, a lot of times we're making assumptions and we think that, if we make it really convenient for people, that will be the motivation. But what we actually found was that people just threw their trash in the recycling bin. But when we said something like cans only, cardboard here, more and more people were actually engaging with it and actually doing what we anticipated or wanted them to do by rolling out recycling. So we can approach environmental considerations using technology to kind of help us figure it out. At the same time, there's obviously, with big data comes a lot of environmental concerns, and I'm hopeful that over time that AI can also help us solve that. The technology is improving. Right now, it takes vast amounts of water, it takes a lot of electricity, and a lot of natural materials that are non-renewable to be able to make this come true. So there's a lot of concerns, and we're looking to AI to solve its own problems. It's already doing that. So in a lot of these data centers, being able to have closed water systems where they're actually just recycling the same water and they're gathering the material back. It's very similar to the way that power plants are doing that today. So we're seeing that the energy is becoming more clean. We are turning to our local cooperatives. I'm a member of our Park County REMC, for example, looking at, how do we have renewable electricity in the community? What are we doing to have greener technology that's not as environmentally impactful as the current technology that we have? So it will get better, but you are right to be concerned. It's not easy to deal with right now, and we are kind of taking a step back in order to move the technology forward. So certainly a concern.
All right, thank you, Treg. And just a reminder, if I don't get to all of your questions today, which I hope I do, I will make sure to copy those and send them to Treg so then he can answer them directly to you. So Laura Sutton.
Real quick, Megan,
Oh, yes.
I will go through any questions we don't get through during the live session, and we will provide responses, and Megan will be sending those out. Also, don't hesitate if you didn't get it into the chat, or if you think of things through discussion or contemplating later, to email me. So my email is on the screen. We will also include questions that are sent via email as well with those responses.
Yes, thank you for that. Laura Sutton, she asked, what kinds of chatbot options are libraries using and how reliable are they? Is there a lot of setup required as far as setting the resources the chatbot uses for answering questions?
Really good question. There are numerous chatbot options. It depends which one you select, how good it is, and also the setup process. What I'm going to discuss is the best. Working with your local web developer They probably have access to some of the best tools for your library, or Connectable can help you as well. That is part of what we do with our artificial intelligence arm. So if you want to consider it this way, you've got a lot of knowledge and you have a database, but you also have a knowledge base. The more information that you're able to provide or that AI can find for you, the more reliable the chatbot becomes. So it can do a lot of different things. Some of it uses things like ChatGPT's components to be able to kind of have that natural language processing where people can ask and even misspell questions and get a qualified answer. But it can only answer what it knows. So the more information that you feed it or that it can find on your website, through your databases, through your knowledge bases, it can even do things like listen in on your phone calls so that it starts to gather that information. We can get really creepy with it, but that creepiness also enhances the reliability of it. Is there a lot of setup? It depends who you're working with. And how much information you have and what format you have it in. If you already have spreadsheets and knowledge bases, as well as a lot of notes or things that you can share with the system, it's as simple as just uploading it and letting the chatbot do its thing. If you don't have that information, it's not so much that the setup is really difficult, it's that collecting that information might be a process for you before implementing.
All righty. Let's see. I have quite a few here. Ryan asks, pretending integration can be done ethically assumes that AI's use won't streamline obsolescence for the benefit of a couple of people or organizations who value advancing their careers over our collective project. As stewards of learning and knowledge, we see every day that our interactions aren't just transactional. Would you agree?
I would agree. So not only do I agree, I think that that's where, at least where we think, because it's all just kind of speculation, but that's where the job market is trending. It's about people that are able to connect and to use the information to help connect with others. So I don't think, for example, that teachers are going away, but I do think education is changing dramatically with artificial intelligence. And I do think that the teacher's role is going to be very different in the future because artificial intelligence has a higher success rate of actually teaching students than the transactional approach of presenting information in a classroom. It gives that one-on-one and personalized experience. For example, states that do not use Connectable, the average high school equivalency gain is 42% nationwide. We've got a 98% success rate of actually people that are showing or expressing interest to achieving a high school equivalency. I don't think it's by happenstance. I think it's because AI is interacting with the student regardless of their barriers, regardless of their languages, regardless of their devices, and it's being able to help them customize a learning plan. It's actually seeing the things that the teacher might not about what they do not know. But it does require us to have a teacher walking them through it, guiding them, building the relationship, and helping them with the technology. I think the same thing is going to happen with our libraries, is that while it might require fewer people to do bigger things, it allows your library to do even bigger things with the more people that you have. So you'll be able to spend time doing the things that you love doing, which is interacting with your patrons and being able to make recommendations based on your experience and help them one-to-one. You'll have more time to do that while the technology is helping people in other ways. So the tasks that you don't like, maybe that's the good part or the good place to begin thinking about AI integration in your library, and then leaving more time to do the things that you really enjoy doing.
Myra Snap asks, which tools are most useful for public libraries and how to help patrons with any questions they might have?
You know, it's tough to answer that without some form of bias, right? Because I think when you're looking at it from the perspective of like, well, even what has helped, right? So if you're in a setting that you want to be a little bit cautious, I think that Microsoft Copilot is a great tool. I think that that's one that is pretty safe to use. Doesn't require any kind of special access or account. So if you have Microsoft Office in your library, you have access to Copilot. Doesn't require subscriptions or logging in and things like that. Google has a great one as well. So if you're on Chromebooks and you're more in that, we're in that same situation there where it doesn't require special access. It doesn't really cost anything. If we want to go more advanced, certainly the paid version or the pro version of ChatGPT is going to give you much better research, much better resources, and more accuracy. It can do deep research, which is going to compete with people like me, a certified quantitative research methodologist that's used to doing everything manually when it comes to statistics and research. But I think that it's improving in different ways. So it's really about kind of thinking about your patrons, maybe giving them some exposure and thinking, well, what is the right tool for the public library to use? I'm going to say to start with something that's free and simple. So something like Gemini or Copilot, maybe those are the best places to start. But again, that's coming with some bias. So I recognize that I have bias. However, I am highly educated, and it all started with one of the best people ever, because as our local librarian in Rochedale pointed out, her assistant, Barb Poole, was my preschool teacher. So I'm excited to say hi to Barb and hi to all my friends at the Rochedale Franklin Township Library.
Awesome. There was a question here. Let me see if I can find it. There's been so many. See if I can find it. There is a question here that
Cost real quick, Megan.
yes.
That's the important part, is choosing ones I think that are free. And there's a lot of them out there. So I will also try to provide a list of free resources for you, so that way you guys can have those, and Megan can send those out. Also, Connectable, we are a nonprofit. We work in that budget space, so it's extremely affordable. So don't hesitate to reach out, to talk to local people as well. And there are a lot of things out there that just have no cost associated with it at all. So we'll help you get there. You are right. There are paid versions that maybe are better, but sometimes those paid versions that are better are also not very expensive.
That's very true. And along those lines, Bethany Gray asked, I have heard a lot of feedback about the inaccuracy of AI generated responses when doing general searches online, like through Google. What other publicly accessible AI research options are there that have higher accuracy?
Well, even Google has things like Google Scholar that provides better accuracy, right? So, and it's a free tool. So you can go, I'm sure most of you are familiar with it already. But, it's definitely one of those things that I feel you've got to kind of explore what you're looking for and how accurate it is. Keep in mind that accuracy is really dependent on how you are prompting it. So that's where I encourage you to have sessions in your communities. And, Jennifer and Barb, I'll be happy to provide a free one to Rochedale, where we actually teach people how to use AI and how to prompt it to get the best results. So that's the key factor in education. That's what people are being taught is, it's like another language. How do we code it? And the way that we communicate it, that's literally what will get you the better result. So it's not so much that the system isn't providing an accurate result, it's that we're not necessarily providing the best prompt to the system to get the result that we're looking for. Computers only do what they're told to do, and sometimes we don't really know how to communicate with them to get what we're looking for.
And I think if we're going to be implementing any AI into libraries, one thing libraries could be thinking is, what does that policy look like? And Victoria asked, what would be a good approach to creating an AI use policy for library staff? Because right now, they have sort of a shadow AI where people are using the tools, but there's not any policy or guidelines for appropriate use. So what would be the good approach?
Yeah. So one thing in the policy that I encourage every business to have is something that says please identify to us which AI systems you are using. And that way we start to not kind of reprimand them for using it or be disappointed that it was used, but to be able to highlight this is what we're using, this is how it's being helpful, and then to form guidelines around that. So self-identification is probably a really important piece of the policy. The other thing is not to be too restrictive with like what's appropriate to use it for and what's not, but to be more empowering of when you use it, how do we acknowledge that we're using it, what we're using? It is still our work. So in academia, I think when we first started seeing AI come into the classroom, the teachers were using it before the students. When the students started using it, we started to question, like, well, do we give credit to AI for doing part of the work? But because of the high level that's required of the prompting and the coding and the understanding of how to use it appropriately, we then kind of changed our focus on the quality of the product that it's producing. And then what did you take to get there? So that's kind of the mix, right? Is we don't want to say don't use AI. We want to say when you're using AI, how do we create policies that make expert use the requirement? Because we don't want you to use it lazily, or we don't want you to use it in a way that's very novice. Maybe that's where we begin with our clients and our patrons, but you're the librarian or the research librarian. We want you to have that high level skill set that promotes uses beyond your own ability. It's just like the calculator. When we begin math, we can do addition and subtraction on our own. But as we get into more complex mathematics, calculators are necessary, or it would take us days or even months to solve a mathematical equation rather than minutes or an hour. Well, that's going to be the same with our AI here. So we want policies that encourage its use. We want policies that encourage its use at an appropriate level.
Thank you for that explanation. Evan had a question about the ethical consideration that you talked about. So he said, an ethical consideration I think you missed is the concern of replacing human labor with AI. So yes, time and money can be saved, and it will be important to retain human oversight. But should libraries participate in or consider the extremely damaging effect on the workforce and global economy that AI will have?
Well, of course, right? We definitely need to consider it, and we've got to understand that it will impact the workforce, the global economy. It already is. 300 million jobs have already been replaced with AI, but also new jobs are being created at an ever increasing rate. So we've got to look at it with great and deep understanding. We also have to look historically that this isn't anything new for us. Technology has been replacing jobs really since the beginning of time and technology. So when the computer came out, it replaced a lot of jobs. One of my first businesses that I started was teaching technology or how to better use technology for those that were 50 and older. And I was doing this in retirement communities, nursing homes, and things like that, and at local libraries like the Mooresville Public Library, where I think I met Megan. So as you're doing this, what we were recognizing was that, technology itself can always come with some fear, but it also comes with accessibility and adaptability. Understanding that computers replace people. It was in that class, I was teaching a student, her name was Berdelis Carter. Dr. Carter actually founded the Indiana University School of Nursing in Indianapolis. She's also the first academic dean of that school. And she was one that revolutionized student services by putting on their registration system online. This was back in 1989. She was already using an online system to do that. So an early adopter of technology. She brought to me something that I found really interesting. I was teaching a spreadsheets course, and she said, this is what a spreadsheet really looks like. And she had this giant workbook, and inside it were all these spreadsheets. And she's like, here's sheet one, here's sheet two. And it helped me realize that what I look at as Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets was once a book. And she said the best thing that ever happened to us was the technology, because prior to that, if I made a mistake, I had to rip out the page and write everything all over cell by cell. But today you can edit it and change it right there. Now, many people lost their jobs with that technology. Spreadsheets and algorithms and things like that were able to change the way that we were able to look at it. But that's changed as well. So I really think it's important that you recognize that while jobs are changing and technology is the reason that it's changing, that it's something that we are used to, that our society adapts to. And I don't know, from a personal perspective, I kind of do think money's the root of all evil. So maybe in a different world, maybe in our future, that working looks different as well. And maybe it's not so evil to have fewer hours of work in our lives. So if it can give us more time and the ability to get into the things that really matter, we do have to consider like all of these issues that come with it, what's going to happen to the economy, but the economy might adjust. And statistically, at least with new technology, our economy has improved. While we've seen jobs fade, we've also seen them increase because technology is always pushing us forward. So it's kind of a rough answer. It is uncertain and we really don't know how to talk about it. It's something that we deal with more in our future sessions. So we do talk about workforce. Again, this is the foundation or part one of the four-part series. And that would be great to see you attend as well. The global economy is not set up for it. However, it might improve it. So we don't know yet. And research is still being kind of overtaken to see like what is going to happen with it. So, and great, good to see you, Lillian, again. Glad to have one of my former students.
That is awesome. Yes, everyone seems to think that this was so informative. And again, thank you so much, Treg, for presenting today. And thanks to everyone for being here. As a reminder, if you are watching an archived recording of this presentation, information on how to obtain your LEU is in the video's description in YouTube. And this will stop the recording.